Transition Awareness Breathing. Feeling grounded for both children and parents is essential for healthy living and learning. Join Eartha Powell on this series for tips and tools for creating a harmonious environment for learning. Transition Awareness Breathing will help you and your child find an individualized path to tackle change, promote lifelong learning, and discover new approaches to calmness.
Welcome, everyone. This is Eartha, and I am so touched and honored to have a special guest on our show today for Transition Awareness Breathing. I have my dear sister-in-law, and her name is Claretta Burns, and she is joining our show today, not because she's my sister-in-law. Of course, that's just over the top, but because Claretta she is my hero in many ways. And she has been through experiences that from a distance I have really admired her tenacity and her positivity. And so we have talked on our show about change and being positive. I thought Claretta would be such a wonderful person to share exactly how it looks like instead of me talking. So I'm going to introduce you to my sister-in-law, Claretta. And a few seconds. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me. You have been through all kinds of waters, turbulence, everything. And
yes,
I was wondering maybe if you could tell us how in the world can you summarize all these years into a few moments? Because, as we talked in our second ago in our pre-meeting, but can you tell us your journey, some of the journeys that you went through as far as, back in 2014, 2019, all that?
Well, 2014, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And we hear about it every day, about breast cancer, but no one ever talks about how to get through it. And with myself, I got through it by just being positive. And I'll tell you, the very first nurse that helped me through the journey, she was the nurse that did my ultrasound. After they did the breast, we did the first mammogram. And we had to go back and do the second. And she told me...
Before you get to that story, when you were called back for your second screening and you had to go back, what was going through your mind during that time before you got to that?
First I'm thinking, what could this possibly be? I really didn't think, okay, could it be breast cancer? It was a lot of things that went on in my head and kind of twirling around. It was when my doctor called me and said she wanted me to come to her office. That's when it really hit me, thinking, okay, it's serious for her to ask me to come to her office to sit down. So that's when I found out I had breast cancer. And she was squeezing my hand so hard, I could barely breathe. So that's when I first found out.
And then, when you had your ultrasound, I interrupted you and I apologize. That ultrasound nurse, she made a difference in your whole life. What went on?
Everything she said resonated in my head, even today. And she basically told me it's going to be up to me how my outcome to get over breast cancer. And basically what she told me was, don't let negativity come into the play of my success of getting past it. She basically said, stick to positive people. Stay positive in your mindset in everything you do, because that's what's going to get you through this breast cancer. And her words of wisdom, and I know she's probably seen many of women that came through this, but her telling me to stay positive and not let pity and self-pity allow me to get in the mix of that fight, because it is a fight. And it depends on you, how you get through it.
And so when you had that conversation when she gave you those golden words, stay positive and don't get sucked in with the pity. So when you got to your doctor's office and the doctor's squeezing your hand, but that's when it hit you that this was real?
Yeah, it was real. And it was like, okay, now it's on. So now what you do is you follow everything the advice that your doctors give you. Make sure you take notes and things of that nature. You know, I took a book in with me, and I wrote down things that I need to remember, some things I didn't once I got home. So I started taking a book with me, and I put the doctor's names and what they said and when I went in. So a lot of things, that started me on my journey of writing things down. Okay, I'm going to tell you that too, Eartha. So I wrote things down, and that too what got me through, because I wrote things down and made myself go back and look at the things that I wrote in my book, and that helped me out a whole lot too. But you have to stay positive yourself. You can't just allow people to ride this on. This is your ride. People can ride along your coattail all they want, but this is your ride. And it's up to you to get through it. It's not up to anybody else. It's up to you.
So you kind of have to accept, so to speak, that this is my journey. What do you do when negativity, and it could be the purest intentions, and maybe people don't really mean to be negative.
And sometimes they don't, Eartha. Sometimes you have to stop and say, I'm okay, and, I had to learn a long time ago, I pray for myself. And you can ask other people pray for you, but you don't know the intentions of other people either. So what I do is I pray for myself. I speak to myself. I talk to myself. It may sound crazy sometimes when you say you talk to yourself, but you do. You have to talk to yourself and get yourself an understanding of what's going on around you and what you're doing. So I did. I talked to myself. And what I talked to myself was about when I first went to the doctor, and that first surgeon, I wanted to go in with a vengeance. I wanted to get it done, taken care of. And that doctor said, no, I think you should just start off doing a lumpectomy, which is just a part of your breast. And in my head, that's not what I wanted to do. But, he spoke me down, and I went ahead for it. And I said, going forward, I'll tell anybody, if that's what you want to do, you tell the doctor, no, this is my body. This is what I want to do. And I wish I wouldn't have had to go through it a second time around. But it is what it is. And I let him downplay it. But after that experience, and I went back to see him, and he still said there was still breast cancer there. I said, never again. I said, no, I want to go someplace that people do this all the time. People work on breast cancer all the time.
So the surgeon that did the lumpectomy, that wasn't a place where they did lumpectomies all the time?
No, he didn't. He didn't do cancer all the time, and I didn't feel like he was giving me. He didn't educate me on the things I need to know, because I was new going in. Like, who gets breast cancer all the time? So you don't really know the questions to ask, what to say. You're listening to them, and you're getting information from them. But if you don't feel like you're getting fed enough education, you go somewhere else. It's exactly what I did. I picked myself up. I started calling around the bigger place that does this all the time. I got an appointment. I got in. I saw a doctor, and we hit it off perfectly. And I said, this is a doctor for me. And that's who did my actual mastectomy. So you have to be comfortable in your own skin.
So when you're asking questions, that can be kind of scary if you don't know. It is. I mean, it is scary. You have this diagnosis, and it's one of the most serious diagnoses I can even imagine. And now you're pulling yourself together to ask questions. What was that like? can you put that into words?
It was hard because, one, you don't know all the terminology, and you don't know all the words of what's coming into breast cancer. You don't even know what you're going to do after the breast cancer, the things that they do. You don't know any of those things. And so going in, you're a newbie. The best you can do is either, you can always research. But research is not going to tell you everything that you need to know about you. So the best thing you do is you don't let your doctor come in for a second and leave the room. You stop them. Say, listen, I want to know this, this, and this. Don't let them out of the room so quick. Because sometimes they want to give you 15 minutes and they're out of there. And sometimes you have to stop them and say, I have more questions. What do I do now? How long is this going to take? What do I do after that? What kind of clothes do I wear after work? It's a lot of things that you don't know. When I got mine done, I didn't know what to do because I still had the other breast. So the other breast is one size, and then you have another size. I didn't know those questions. I didn't think about that. I didn't think about what's take place after the first. So,
and that's one thing that you mentioned, that it's so important to go to a place where they do those procedures all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. You mentioned about your meeting with the oncologist.
Yeah, the first oncologist I met, and I had in my mind, I wanted to get this thing out. And when I spoke to him and he asked me, how do I want to deal with this? And I told him, I said, I want to get it done. I want the whole breast to be gone. And he was agreeing to me. But then when I got to the surgeon, that first surgeon, he said, well, if I was his mom or sister, he would say, let's not do it aggressively. Thinking, let's do it aggressively. And so he talked me down, and I said, okay, which I wish I hadn't. But, he talked me down. He said, no, let's do the lumpectomy. But a lot of times with the lumpectomy, they may not get all the cancer. So then that means you have to go back again, and which we call, you have to do the whole mastectomy, which takes the whole breast away. So I felt like I was kind of backwards, but in the end, I still got that breast done. I'm glad that I got that done, but I'm also glad that I took upon myself to go to a place that does these procedures all the time.
Yeah.
And everything that they do is cancer. So I felt comfortable once I went to that facility.
So any fear or anxiety, how did that?
The fear and anxiety, it's the unknown. Anything that we don't know about or have an idea of educated about, that's always a fear. Fear going in was, let's just get it done. Let me move on with my life. Let me fix this however I can do it. Stay positive. Do everything they tell you to do. If you need to go to classes, they have classes also. Classes that teach you either how to do your wound care when you get home. If you're not really sure of it, you can say, I want to go to a class. I want to make sure I'm doing this right. Making sure I have enough bandages at home and the prep of it. So it's up to you. You have to ask the questions. You have to tell them, where do I get more bandages at? If you're not sure where the medical supply stores are, you ask them those questions. But of course, you're going in, you don't know all this stuff.
Going to those classes was really helpful.
It was helpful. It was. It was very helpful. Even the class I had to go to, they show you how to milk your line. And I'm glad I went, because them just showing you one time, once you get home, it's a whole different story. Because once you get home, you're not used to a line being inside of your wound, inside of your body, holding on to it enough so that you don't pull it out your wound, and making sure all the fluid is going into the bag. It's a process. It's something that you don't know on a normal basis. You get through it. You have to get through it, and you will. You will get through it, but you have to stay positive. You have to stay positive every day.
You keep mentioning you got to get through it. You got to move on. You got to be positive. It seems like that was your primary mission, was to get through it and to stay positive. It was.
And I was marching through it, because that was my whole motive.